This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about the various client-side events and how can we perform the operations within the component by placing some button controls, and how can we invoke those actions and click on that button on changing that values inside the field, and how to invoke those actions we have discussed in the previous session. Now, today we'll see decorators. So what exactly a decorator, and then what is the functionality of the decorator, and what decorators are available in Lightning Web Component, and what each decorator indicates. Okay, we'll see practically. Now, let me explain simple functionality. Let me explain. For example, I have a normal Apex class. Public class. I'm having some accounts helper. Generally, inside the class, what we can do, we can define some set of variables, procedures, functions, properties, constructors, all these things. Now, inside this class, okay, inside this class, we can define some variables also. Now, upon defining the variable, what we have to do, I'm defining the variable like this: integer customer code. Now, then what it means here, whenever I'm defining the variable simply with the data type integer customer code, then what it means, so when coming to this variable is a private variable, because upon defining the variable, we have to give access specifier, right? Yes, we know as part of Apex programming what access specifiers are available. We have 4 access specifiers are available in Apex programming. Like we have the private access specifier, we have the public access specifier, we have protected, we have global. Okay, global. Now, these are 4 access specifiers are available. If I'm defining this variable as private, okay, then what will happen? That member can be accessible, okay, within that class itself. Outside of that class, we can't access a member. Like, for example, I'm defining a member here. So now I'm defining a member inside this class. For example, I'm defining a member. Private integer customer code. And then I'm indicating public string customer code. And then public string, I'm indicating designation. Like that, we can define some methods also, like as public void, I'm indicating the method name. So like as insert account card. Here we are writing some logic over here. Write the logic. Write the business logic. So now here I'm writing some business logic. Now we can close it. So now in this case, what happened? When coming to the access specifiers, we have, okay, 4 access specifiers in Apex program. Private. The private means what? Whenever we are defining the member as private, which can be accessible within the class. Within the class. From outside of the class, we can't access this member. Okay, from outside of the class, we can't access member. Now, not accessible. Not accessible from outside of the class. Suppose if it is a public, then now this public class member can be accessible, okay, within the class and outside of the class. Okay, this can be accessible within the class and outside of the class also here. This is the functionality. Okay, this is the functionality that we have as part of Apex program. Now, like the similar way, okay, we are going to be preparing some variables inside your JavaScript class. Inside the JavaScript class, we are preparing some variables also. We are preparing some methods also over here, like as part of this JavaScript. In JavaScript, we are preparing that, like we have to specify. Now here we are going to be indicating this export default class. It is indicating your class name over here. Extends, it is indicating lightning element. So this is the class. Inside this class, we are going to be indicating that. Okay, we are indicating this. So now we are defining the variables. How? Now I would like to specify customer code. Okay, we are assigning some value. Okay, sample. Okay, like as customer code, some C. Okay, 200. Okay, 3456. And then here I'm indicating customer name. I'm indicating that customer name, some Ready Labs. Ready Labs Incorporation. I'm defining some functions also. Like I'm indicating the function, okay, handle on click. We are writing some business logic over here. Inside this JavaScript function, we are writing this. Write the business logic. Now, this is a JavaScript class, okay, which we have in our Lightning component. Because each component will be having JavaScript code, right? So now that JavaScript code is nothing but a JavaScript class. So we have the JavaScript classes available. Let me show you. So now in this case, for example, we have a component, basic calculator component here. We have a JavaScript class. This is the class here. Now it is having the export default class, whatever the component name that you have given, with that name, it is creating a class, extends lightning element. Here we are defining the variables here. We are defining some functions also inside here, which we are going to be implementing right now. Now in this case, whenever I'm defining this variable inside this JavaScript class, till what level this variable can be accessible, till what level this particular function can be accessible, to indicate that we are using the help of decorators. So like as for example, this class in our normal Apex class, we have defined some variables. Okay, we have defined some variables. Suppose if I'm defining the variable simply, like as integer customer code, this can be accessible within the class only. If it is a public one, it will accessible from other classes also, wherever you want within the entire organization. Now, like the similar way here also we can define. If I'm defining this variable customer code and with some value, this variable can be accessible up to what level? This generally these variables are called as properties in JavaScript or in Lightning Web Component. In Lightning Web Component, these variables are also called as properties. Now, this property can be accessible till what level? And whatever the function we have defined over here, this function can be accessible till what level? Within the component or from the other components also? From parent component can we access, or from child component can we access? Like what? Till what level we can access here? Whether this variable or the property can be accessible within the same component or from parent component also, till what level it can be accessible. To indicate that we are using the help of decorator, simply we can say these are like as access specifiers which we have in Apex. Simple concept. In Apex classes, we are having the various access specifiers: private, public, protected, global. Like the similar way, as part of this Lightning Web Component also, we have a feature called as decorator. Okay, we have a feature called as decorator. So what the decorator will do, decorator is going to be giving some additional functionality to your property and the method. Whatever the function that you're preparing or whatever the properties you're defining, properties means variables, simple, just a terminology difference. So now whatever the properties or whatever the variables that you're defining, for those properties, for those functions, we can indicate, okay, we can indicate up to what level these can be accessible. These can be accessible within the component or outside of the component also. To indicate that we are using the help of these decorators. As part of decorators, we have three decorators are available when coming to your Lightning Web Component. Now, in LWC, we have three decorators. Three types of decorators. First one, @track decorator. Second one, @API decorator. Third one, @while decorator. These are the three types of decorators are available as part of your Lightning Web Component. We have track, we have API, and the while. These are the three decorators are available. Then what this a track decorator? This a track decorator is exactly similar like as your private access specifier. Private access specifier. Okay, it will be look like as a private access specifier. That means what? When coming to that, okay, property, okay, or a function inside the JavaScript has been defined as track with the track decorator, then that property and that function can be accessible within the component only. Okay, within the component only, we can able to make it accessible here. Now, so in this case here, okay, now here in this case, when coming to that, okay, properties here, whatever the properties that we have defined, whatever the functions you have defined with, okay, @track, then these will be accessible within the component only. From outside of the component, we can't access it. Like as private, okay, whatever the private members are available, that can be accessible within the class, not from outside of the class. Like the similar way, the track properties and the track functions can be accessible within the class, within that component only, not from outside of the component. Now, then how can we define that? Okay, now let's see the syntax. Now the syntax. For example, how can we define, suppose generally we are defining the variable like this. Customer code equals to, we are assigning some value C4560034, okay, 90. Then just you can define this variable with @track, @track space that particular variable name, that means property name. So that the syntax is, we have to specify that. We have to specify @track, okay, @track. We can specify the property name, and optionally we can assign the value also. We can assign the value. So now in this case here, we can define these variables like this. So this is a variable that we can define. Now suppose if you want to define one more variable over here, @track customer name. I'm indicating this value some Ready Labs Incorporation, like that. So these members can be accessible, okay, within the component only, not from outside of the component. Suppose if you want to define the method, that means the function as, okay, private, then we can use that syntax. We can use the syntax like this. We can specify @track. Now we can specify the function name, If it is having any parameters, then we can specify the parameters. And then here we can write the business logic. That's it. Write the business logic. For example, I'm defining the function. Now we can specify. Okay, at the rate track. Now I'm indicating handle on change. We can write the business logic here, whatever you want. That's it. Simple concept. Now, so when coming to this decorators, basically the decorator is going to be giving some additional functionality to your properties and functions within the JavaScript class. So whenever we are going to be defining any property or any function within the JavaScript class, we have to indicate up to what level these particular properties and functions can be accessible. Whether these can be accessible within the component or these can be accessible from outside of the component also, that we can indicate with the help of these decorators. So from those decorators, we have three decorators are available over here. Okay, we have three decorators are available over here. First one, track. The track decorator is going to be used to define the private properties. So within the component, if you want to access only few variables or few properties or few functions, define them with the private track property. So the track decorator is going to be making that property and the function as private to the component, so that these components cannot be accessible from outside. These properties, these functions can't be accessible from outside of that component. Here within the component only we can able to access. Now, so now in this case, these properties are, okay, these properties are private properties are reactive properties. Okay, private properties are reactive properties over here. So now what is this reactive properties? Okay, now let me explain. When coming to the properties, properties will be of two types. First one, reactive properties. Second one, non-reactive properties. Okay, first one, reactive properties. Second one, non-reactive properties. Then what do you mean by this reactive property? What do you mean by non-reactive property here? Okay, now let me explain. So now non-reactive properties in the sense, suppose for example, I have a property, that means I have a variable, okay, within my JavaScript class. Now that property value I have represented. Okay, that property value I have represented. Now, in this case, whenever I'm going to be making any changes in the property value, that will not be reflecting on the component again. That means immediately it won't reflect. That means it will not be re-rendering that component. Re-rendering means what? Refresh. Okay, re-rendering means refresh. So that component value, that means that property value will not be reflected immediately on that particular component. That is the functionality of non-reactive property. Non-reactive means what? It will not re-render the component. Component will not be getting re-rendered. If it is a reactive property, reactive properties will be re-rendering the component immediately. Suppose when you make any changes, okay, when you make any changes inside that, okay, property value through JavaScript, then immediately wherever this property has been referenced, all those places will be getting, okay, recalculated automatically by default. That is the functionality, because that is the functionality. Now, let me explain here. For example, let me explain a small scenario. For example, I have two components are available. Okay, there are two components or a single component, whatever, anything. There is a component. For this component, okay, I have written some JavaScript code also. Okay, there is a JavaScript code. So this is the JavaScript code which I have prepared over here. So we have a JavaScript code is available. Now, so let me indicate this. I'm having this. Export default class. I'm indicating. So now property demo extends lightning element. This is the JavaScript class. Here I have defined a property here. Okay, here I have defined a property. For example, so now I'm defining a property like as custom message. I'm indicating. Okay, I'm indicating this. I'm indicating the message. Now this is custom message. This is custom message. Now here I'm placing a button control. Here I'm placing a button control, and then I'm placing the method also. Now here I'm indicating, okay, now handle on click. Handle on click. Now when this method is getting executed, I would like to change the value, like as custom message. In that variable I'm indicating, now the message has been changed. Message has been changed. I'm indicating this. Okay, this is the function which I have prepared. What this function will do, whenever I'm calling this function, now this function is assigning a new value for this variable. Now it is indicating the message has been changed. Now, for example, I'm having the label here. So right now I'm showing this, okay, message on this component. How can we represent this component here? Just you can able to specify that, okay, custom message. Custom message. Then immediately it will represent that value here. What is the value it is representing? This is custom message. So the value will be getting reflected. The value will be getting visible over here. The value will be getting visible. For example, I have a button control. I have a button control. Now, I'm indicating change value. Now, as soon as once you click on this button control, okay, as soon as once you click on this button control, now this button control is going to be invoking this method. Okay, so now it is invoking the method, then it is going to be assigning some new value. So now once a new value has been getting assigned, that value will not be reflecting onto the component immediately. That means component will not refresh. Component will not refresh. Okay, that will not be visible over here on that place. It will not be refreshed. That means component will not get refreshed here. This is the problem when coming to the non-reactive properties. Non-reactive means what? Whenever if you are making any changes in that particular property value through JavaScript, then that value will not be reflecting immediately on the component. That means that value will not be get re-rendered. The component will not get re-rendered. That will be available as it is. The same previous value will be visible on this particular component itself. So that is the functionality of non-reactive properties. Non-reactive properties. Second one, reactive properties. Second one, reactive properties. So what do you mean by reactive properties? Now let me explain. Suppose I have these reactive properties. Now, in this case, let's see what is the functionality will happen. For example, same functionality, you can take it over here also. So now here in this case, whenever I'm going to be changing any value, upon click on the button control, the value will be getting changed over here. Now immediately what it will do is, it will refresh that component here. So whatever the new value we have assigned, that new value will be getting visible on the component. Immediately it will refresh that. Immediately it will reflect. That means what? It will be re-rendering the component. So whenever if that property value has been changed, whenever you are modifying the property value through JavaScript also, or through some parent component also, from anywhere we can make the changes here. Then automatically now immediately the component will be getting reflected, so that wherever this particular property has been used, wherever this variable has been used, all those variables, all those places will be getting reflected automatically by default. These are the two types of properties: reactive, non-reactive. Okay, reactive properties and the non-reactive properties over here. Now, so in this case here, when coming to the properties, almost by default, whatever the properties you are defining, each and every property is a reactive property in Lightning Web Component. Before Spring 20 release, okay, before Spring 20 release, okay, we have reactive and non-reactive. But right now, from Spring 20 release onwards, every property is a reactive property automatically by default. From Spring 20 release onwards, every property which you have defined, it may be a track property also, that will be, okay, it may be normal property also, that will be reactive property by default. That means whenever if you're making any changes inside that property value through JavaScript, automatically that value will be reflecting onto the component over here. So that's what we can treat this. Okay, track properties are the track decorator is going to be used to define the properties which are reactive. Okay, which are reactive properties. So whatever the variables or whatever the functions that you want to make it accessible within the component, then we are defining it as track decorator. It's like as a private access specifier. It's like as private access specifier over here. Now, simply reactive, non-reactive means what? These are like a static, non-static. It is static, non-static keywords. Static means what? So now through that object, we can access the two members here. Okay, the same variable we can access from the two objects also. Suppose through one object, if you're making some change in the value in the for the second object also, the new value will be getting reflected automatically. That is called as reactive. Now, non-reactive means what? Non-static. Simple terminology here. Whatever the concept that we have in Apex programming, similar kind of concepts are available here also as part of this JavaScript as well. Okay, just the terminology different. There we are using static and non-static. Here we are calling them as, okay, reactive and non-reactive. There we are calling it as access specifiers. Here we are calling it as decorators. Simple terminology. If you know this terminology, then it will be very easy to understand this concept. Nothing different. Now, basically, the track decorators are used to define some properties and the functions which can be accessible within the component itself. These cannot be accessible from outside of the component. When you try to assign some value from the outside of the component, okay, it won't set that value over here. These are local because these are local to this particular component itself. Now, this is the way. We can't assign this value from outside of the component here. Even though when you try to assign, the value will not set. That is a functionality of track decorator. Now, next one. Let me use the note point here. Decorators. Now, in this case, you can see decorators are used to add the additional functionalities to the JavaScript properties in the sense variables and functions. JavaScript variables and functions. Now, it defines the level of access of the property or function. That is to indicate The property or function can be accessible within the component, or outside of the component. So in order to indicate this, okay, in order to indicate the level of access of this property or the function, we are using the help of decorators. Now, so now here in this case, these decorators are going to be indicating up to what level this property or the function can be accessible. Now, so basically, these decorators are part of ECMAScript. Okay, as part of this ECMAScript, we are going to be using this decorators over here. Now, in this case, as part of this Lightning Web Components, we have three types of decorators are available over here. Now, Lightning Web Components provides the below three types of decorators. First one, @track. Second one, @API. Third one, @wire. Okay, these are the three types of decorators are available. Now, these decorators can be applicable for JavaScript, okay, properties and functions both. Then how can we indicate that here? How can we specify? Now, the syntax. We can apply the decorators for JavaScript properties and functions as below. Now, the syntax for property. How can we do that? In this case, we have to specify @decorator name, and then we can specify the property name equals to, we can specify the value. Okay, now, for example, so now here I'm indicating @track, I'm indicating customer code equals to some value. So CID 7008945. Now we can specify @API customer name equals to, I'm indicating some Ramesh Kumar. @wire, we can define the property name like as account records. Like that, we can able to define these properties here. So upon defining the property, we can able to make it as either private or public or what, we can indicate that. Now here we have private and public too. I will tell you which one is private. Already we know track is the private. Okay, @track decorator is indicating this particular component or this particular JavaScript function or property is purely restricted to that component, not outside. Now, second syntax for functions. Okay, functions. Then we can specify decorator name, and then we can specify the function name and write the business logic. Write the business logic. Okay, so we can specify that. Depends upon your requirement. Here we can able to specify. So now, for example, we can specify @track. Now I'm indicating handle unchange. We can write the logic. @API, @API, handle unclick. Here we can pass events also, whatever you want. If you want to pass the event, you can pass, no problem. write the business logic. Like that, we can able to define here. So now depends upon your application requirement, we can specify. So now we have to indicate that whenever you are defining a JavaScript variable, that means property or JavaScript function, then we are using the help of this decorator. So we can indicate either track or API or wire. Now, this is how we have to follow the syntax. Now let's see here. Let's see each and every decorator one by one. First one, track decorator. At the rate track decorator. What exactly at the rate track decorator will indicate? Basically, track decorator is going to be indicating that particular property or the functions can be accessible within the component only, not from outside. This is restricted to that component. Okay, this is restricted to the component. So from parent components or from other components, we can't assign the values. That means whenever we are changing this property value through JavaScript functions also, from the parent also, from within the component also, it will not re-render the component. That means it won't reflect that. It won't reflect the component immediately. That is the functionality of track decorator here. Now, so now here in this case, now, let's see in this case, how can we define this track decorator? Now let's see. So in this case here, before Spring 20 release, whatever the track decorator properties that we have defined, those will be non-reactive. And then now we are having this, all are each and every property which we are defining inside the JavaScript, that property will be a reactive property here. Now, let's see. Let me use that note point before the going to the tag decorator. Let me do that. Reactive and non-reactive properties. Now, basically in JavaScript, okay, we have two types of properties are available that already we have discussed. Okay, reactive property, non-reactive property. Reactive property means what? Whenever we are making the changes in the property value, okay, through JavaScript, okay, upon button click also, or from any other parent component also, whatever, it will not be reflecting. Okay, it will not be reflecting onto your component directly here. That is functionality of non-reactive. Reactive means what? It will be immediately reflected automatically. That means it will re-render the component automatically by default so that the people can see the latest data over there. The people can see the latest data immediately over there. That functionality is available as part of reactive properties. Now, let's see. Reactive properties and non-reactive properties here. Now, in Lightning Web Components, we have two types of properties. First one, reactive properties. Second one, non-reactive properties. Now, reactive properties means what? Now, in this case. So now in this approach, if the property value has been changed, the property value has been changed through JavaScript, then it will re-render the component. It will re-render the component so that the user can see the latest value of the property. The latest value of the property in the component. component. That is, all the other properties, functions referencing this property will get recalculated automatically by default. So now the fundamental principle is reactive properties are going to be immediately re-rendered in the component. If you make any changes in the property value, immediately it will be reflecting onto that component by default here. That is the functionality of reactive property. Now, non-reactive property means what? Now, in this approach, if the property value has been changed, now it will not re-render the component here. Now, next one, let me do the notepad here. Since Spring 20 release onwards, all the properties inside the LWC are reactive properties by default. All the properties are reactive properties by default. So that here, whenever we are making any changes in the property value, then immediately it will be reflecting onto that component. So that component will be getting re-rendered automatically by default. Now, let's see. So now in this case, as part of this track decorator. So basically, track decorator is used to make that property or function can be restricted to the respective component itself. I don't want to make this property in the function can be accessible from outside. You can't access and then you can't assign the value from outside here. Only within the component we can able to make it accessible and we can change the values within the component itself. For that reason, we are using the help of track decorator. Now, track decorator is used to make the properties and functions are private. That is track decorated properties and functions can be accessible within the component only. Within the component only. Now, we can't access and we can't assign the values to the track decorated properties from outside of the component. From the outside of the component, we can't assign the value, we can't access that value. That is a functionality here. So now the syntax. So now here I'm indicating. Note. Track decorated properties are reactive properties by default. reactive properties by default. Okay, these are reactive properties. So that means if you are making any changes in the property level, that will be reflecting onto your component automatically by default. It will refresh that component. Syntax. Okay, we can define. Now, here I'm indicating this. So now while using or while defining track decorated properties, we have to import the track namespace inside the component. We have to import the track namespace inside the component. Then how can we do that? Okay, now let me explain the syntax so that you can understand very easily. Now, so now for example, I'm having a JavaScript class is available over here. Okay, I'm having a JavaScript class. Now, so in this case here, so now I'm having this. Export default class name we have extends, okay, extends lightning element. Here I'm defining this. Okay, now let's specify that. I'm indicating some properties, track, okay, customer name. I'm indicating some Ram Kumar at the rate track. I'm indicating the customer designation. The designation equals to some sales manager. At the rate track, I'm indicating that now handle on change. Here I'm writing some business logic. Whenever we are using this track decorator, then we have to import this namespace inside your lightning component. So for that one, we have to specify. Here we have import statement. In this import statement, it is fetching the data here. Okay, from okay LWC. That means it is importing whatever the namespaces are required here. Now, by default, it is indicating that okay lightning element, because we are using this lightning element over here. Along with that, we are using track decorator, so that we have to specify comma track. Okay, comma track, so that we have to specify track decorator or namespace also we have to import, so that so now it is going to be using, it is importing that okay the modules automatically, the track module will be importing automatically by default okay by this lightning web component. So whenever we are going to be using any track decorator, okay, it may be any decorator here, it may be track, it may be API, it may be wire, we have to import that respective okay module okay by using this import statement. In this import statement, we have to indicate what are the various okay modules that we are accepting here. So now here we are using lightning element here, and then we are using track. If you are using API, then we can specify API. If you are using wire, then we can specify wire also. So now this is how we are going to be defining the track decorators. We can define the properties and we can define the functions also. And then whenever we are going to be defining any property or function by using this track decorator, we have to import this namespace also inside your lightning web component by using this import statement. This is a fundamental principle over here as part of this okay track decorator. Now, track decorator properties are okay, these are purely reactive properties. properties. Okay, these are purely reactive properties. Now, so in this case here, okay, in this case, okay, how can we see that whether it is a reactive property or non-reactive property over here? So that here we are going to be using one small example over here. Okay, let's see a small example. Now, let's see. Let me show you how can we use this track decorator. Now, so let me create a new component, Lightning Web component. I'm creating a new Lightning Web component. Go to that command palette, create a Lightning Web component. I'm using track decorator component or demo component. See, simple. Track decorator component. Now, track decorator component. Let's click on this enter button and use the default, okay, the default namespace. So now here this is a JavaScript file, and then we are having this HTML file also available here for this component. Now let's open this JavaScript file, and then we can able to use this, okay, HTML file also. So now in this case, here I'm going to be defining a small variable over here. I'm defining a variable inside this, which is of type, that means a property which is of type, okay, track decorator here, or else normal property also we can define anything here. Every property is a non-reactive, every property is a reactive property by default in Lightning Web component, by default, all the properties. So now here in this case, now how to define that properties here? That means how to indicate is it a reactive, non-reactive, I will show you practically. So now suppose for example, here I'm going to be defining a property here, that means a variable. Now customer, okay, custom message, for example, I'm defining a variable. So here I'm indicating, so now this is a private non-reactive property. Okay, or else simply reactive property here. I'm indicating private reactive property. So now here I would like to show this value on my, okay, Lightning component. I've defined a property with the name custom message, which is having some value, okay, that is called as private, okay, reactive property. Now let me go to my HTML component here. Now I would like to define this. Now I'm indicating this. I would like to place one text box here. Inside this, I would like to represent. So that I'm using Lightning card. Okay, Lightning card component. Here I'm indicating title equals to reactive property demo. I'm indicating icon name, standard account. So here I'm going to be indicating a div tag. Inside this div tag, I'm placing one input control. Lightning input. Okay, Lightning input, I'm indicating the label. Label equals to now show custom message. Show custom message. I'm indicating placeholder. Now it's a reactive property. It's a reactive property. Now in this case here, I'm indicating this onChange. Okay, onChange equals to, I would like to call that method. I would like to call the method. Now handle onChange. So now whenever I'm changing this particular, okay, when I click on change this value, immediately I would like to call this a method. This is the method which I'm going to be preparing. Okay, this is a method which I'm going to prepare. So now here in this case, this is the method I'm preparing over here. So now it is indicating that custom message I'm changing this. Now custom message equals to now reactive property value has been updated. Value has been changed. I'm assigning some new value here. Now this value I want to represent on my lighting component here. So that here as part of this label, I'm indicating this. Now the value property equals to, I would like to specify that message. Okay, custom message. Now, simply what we did is, okay, I have prepared one lighting card. Inside this lighting card, I have placed one input text box. So in that input text box, I'm representing the message here. Okay, default message. Whatever the default message that I have indicated initially, that value will be getting represented here inside my text box. Suppose if I'm changing this value, immediately, okay, it is going to be reflecting that. I want to change this value also. I want to modify that. On change, okay, I would like to assign this new value over here. When I change the value, automatically that should be get assigned over here. Now, so now this message I would like to represent, okay, on my lighting component also. So here I would like to represent one more div tag. I'm indicating custom message is I would like to represent that message. I'm representing the message also. Now, so in this case, what we did, so now in order to represent, okay, in order to represent upon changing this value, the value will be reflecting or not, I'm indicating this. Now, as soon as whenever you are changing the value, then immediately this handle onChange method will get fired. This function is going to changing the value of this. And now I want to make these properties can be accessible or functions can be accessible within this particular component itself. So that I'm indicating as @track decorator. This is also okay @track decorator. Okay, @track decorator. So now whenever if you want to use this add track decorator, we have to import this namespace inside my lighting component. So this in this import, we have that lighting element and then comma, we can specify track. So now track, okay, @track. Now, so now here in this case, so now I would like to specify that. So now when coming to this method, I'm going to be using this @track decorator over here. So whatever the methods or whatever the functions that you want, we can able to make it visible over here. So now I'm making it here. Now let's see. Now, so now here in this case, let me show you. Let me call this component. Here I'm indicating C colon. I would like to specify okay track decorator component. Track decorator component. Let me save this component application also. Now let me check JavaScript file also has been saved. Now I will go back to my Scratch arc, open default arc. Go to the developer console. Now click on preview. Now let's see. Now, so now we can see that. So now it is indicating by default, it is indicating this message here. Private okay reactive property. Okay, private reactive property. So now here in this case, we can specify. Okay, now at the rate, we can specify that. So now here in this case, we have a text box is available here. In the text box, I'm able to represent this value. Whenever I'm changing anything here, suppose if I'm typing some character here, automatically, now it is indicating uncaught reference to error, custom message is not defined. Now, let's see. Here, whenever if you want to reference any parameter, any property here, we have to use this dot. Okay, this dot we can able to reflect. We can access this each and every property by using this dot. Now, let's refresh this user interface. Now, whenever I'm changing this value, okay, now by default it is showing like as private reactive property here also same. Whenever I'm changing this value, when you type, automatically see in both the places it is indicating the value has been changed. It is reflecting this value also over here. That means what? Whenever I'm changing the value inside this place, automatically the complete component has been re-rendered so that we can see the latest value. Okay, we can see that all the places will be getting refreshed. Not only the particular text to box control, this particular common message also will be getting reflected automatically. Like for example, I will show some more inside this. For example, I'm adding this event. Okay, I'm using this event. Whatever the message that we have, that particular label I would like to represent over here. Now, this start custom message equals to event dot target dot value. Whatever the value is available inside this particular, whatever the value is available in this particular, the text box, that value I would like to represent over here in both the places. Now, refresh this user interface. So now whenever I'm entering some values inside it, now immediately that value will be getting visible over here. The latest value will be getting visible in both the places, okay, whenever you are entering. That means what? Whenever we are changing this value, okay, then automatically that value will be reflecting in the component. That means component will be getting re-rendered automatically here. But the people don't know this component is re-rendering. That means refreshing to see the latest data. So that whenever if you're removing something here, it is going to be removing that in two places also. That means what? It will be re-rendering that component automatically by default. This is the way we can able to define that, okay, properties with a track decorator, and then these properties we can't access from the outside. Okay, from outside we can't assign that new values over here. We can't assign the new values for this. Now, this is the way we can able to define the track decorators. Now, let me place this code. Let me take this use case. Define a lightning web component to represent the track reactive property values on the component. Now, Second one. The second decorator is @API decorator. So what exactly @API decorator basically? It's like as a public, okay, it's like as a public access specifier, simple. So now whatever the properties or whatever the methods that we have defined, okay, with @API decorator, those can be accessible within these components also and from other components also, okay. So in order to make a property or a component function from other components, then we are using the help of it as API, like as public classes. So whenever we are defining a public variable, public variables can be accessible from within the class and outside of the class also. Public functions can be accessible from within the class and from outside of the class also. From anywhere we can access. Like the similar way, we can define these public properties and public functions by using this @API decorator, which will make these properties and functions can be accessible outside of the component also. That means from other components also, we can make it accessible and we can assign the values for these properties from outside as well. That possibility is available, okay, as part of this @API decorator. Now, let's see in this case here. These are also reactive properties only, because these are also reactive. That means whenever we are making any changes in the property value through JavaScript, it will be immediately, it will re-render the component by default. Okay, immediately it will re-render the component by default over there. Now, let's see in this case, how can we define this? Let me give you the example as well here, and then we'll see that theoretical notes as well. Now, so now let's see API decorator, the functionalities. Let me give the node point for this one. API decorator will make the property and functions as public. As public here. That is, we can access these properties from other components. And we can invoke these methods from other components. Okay, other components here. Now, note, @API properties are reactive properties by default. These are reactive properties over here. Now, so in this case, you know that Okay, if any of the value, that means if any of the property value has been modified through JavaScript or by using any other component, automatically this value will be reflecting in your Lightning component, so that here we can able to see that latest data on that component. That facility is available over here. Now, so now here in this case here, let's see how can we do this one. Whenever we are going to be defining this, okay, at the rate API decorator properties, now let's see the syntax. The syntax will be at the rate, we can specify API, and then we can specify the property name equals to value. Now, for example, I'm indicating at the rate API. I would like to specify the product name. Product name equals to, we can specify the value. Now I'm indicating some air conditioner. And then we can define at the rate API, I'm indicating manufacturer. I'm indicating like some Samsung. Samsung Incorporation. And the functions also. At the rate API, we can specify the function name, and we can write the business logic. So this function can be accessible, okay, from anywhere. Okay, not only from within this component, from outside of the component also we can make it accessible over here. So for that reason, we are using the help of this. Now, let me show you a small demonstration over here. How can we use this? So now we can able to assign this particular, okay, property value from outside also, from other components also we can able to accessible. We can assign the value from outside as well. That possibility is available as part of this, okay, API decorator. Suppose if it is a track decorator property, for that one we can't assign the value from outside. Now let's see how can we do that. Let me show you the two components here, the parent component and the child component. So inside the child component, I would like to define some variables, that means properties. And for these properties, I would like to assign the value from parent component here. Then how can we do that? Okay, now let's see practically in this case. So let me define two components here. Now I'm indicating this. Let me create a lightning component. So now I would like to specify I'm indicating child component. Okay, child component. Now this is the child component here, which we have created. Inside this, I'm defining two properties. Okay, first one at the rate track decorator property here. At the rate track, I'm indicating the customer name. I'm indicating some Ram Kumar. Second one at the rate API property. That means API decorated. That means so now both are having two different access levels. So that to show you demonstrated here, like whether we can able to access from parent component or not, we are using this. Now at the rate API, I'm going to be indicating the product name. Product name equals to I'm indicating as, so this is some washing machine. Whenever we are going to be using any of these decorators, then we have to import those decorators inside your lightning component by using that, okay, import statement. So that we have to specify track decorator and then API decorator both also. I'm going to be importing this. Now, so now for this two here, I'm going to be indicating these values. So now let's see here. Now I'm going to be using a common property also. For example, let me take a normal property here, which we are having this. So now I would like to indicate the employee name. Okay, employee name equals to some Sampath Kumar. Okay, Sampath Kumar. So now these are the three variables that I have defined. That means properties. One is okay common without any decorator. So now here in this case, this is the property which we have defined here. Now second one, product name, which is a API decorated property. Third one, okay, the customer name, okay, which is a track decorated property over here. Now, so in this case here, I would like to represent these values. Okay, I would like to represent these values over here. How to represent these values? To represent these values, I am going to be using this HTML file. In this HTML file, I am going to be preparing the lightning card components. Lightning card. Here I'm indicating title equals to, I would like to specify that property. The first one is a track property. Okay, track property. So now I'm indicating the icon name equals to standard account. Here I'm indicating the value here. Now, track property value. Okay, track decorated property value. Okay, I would like to indicate this. What is that particular variable name? That means property name, customer name. Okay, customer. Here we can specify this. I'm indicating customer like the similar way. I would like to prepare two more lightning card components. Now, this is for API decorated property. Now here I'm indicating API decorated property. This variable is nothing but what? Okay, product name. Okay, the product name. Now this is a common property. That means general property here. Common property value. Now here I'm indicating employee name. Employee name. So now these are the three properties here. Now I'm saving this. I'm able to see these values. Okay, now I would like to represent these values on my lightning card. So by default, what happened, whatever the values are available inside these properties, these values will be representing on my lightning card component. Now let me run this. Here I'm indicating child component. Child component. Let's run this. So now we can see the three components here, three lightning card components. It is indicating track decorated property value is Ram Kumar, API decorated property value is washing machine, and the common property value is Sampath Kumar. Okay, now fine. Now here I would like to place a button control to change the values here. From within the component, can we change the values or not? Okay, now to do that, let me place this, a button control here. I'm placing a button control. I'm using a div tag. I'm placing that lightning. I'm placing this lightning button control. Lightning button control in order to invoke this. I'm placing a button control, okay, in order to change these values here. So let's see. I would like to indicate this value over here. Now let's see. I'm giving the label for the button control. Label equals to change values. Change values. Now I'm indicating on click. I would like to give the method name as okay, handle on click. Handle on click. This is a method. Let me prepare the method here. I'm preparing this method. Now I'm assigning the new value for these properties. These are the properties are available. So now I would like to indicate this dot customer name equals to, I'm indicating simply the message here to show that, to indicate whether the value has been changed or not. Customer name has been changed. This dot product name, I'm indicating product name has been changed. This dot employee name, I'm indicating employee name has been changed. That means upon click on that button control, I would like to invoke this functionality. I would like to change that value of this particular properties here. That means within the component, I'm going to changing these values. I'm changing these values. Now let's see. So now let me save this button control HTML code as well. Now let's refresh this user interface. Go to the browser, run the component. So now here it is indicating that initially the values are Ram Kumar, washing machine, and the Sampath Kumar. When you click on the button control, immediately on click on this button control, it is going to be changing this three property values here. See, all the three property values has been modified over here. Okay, all the three property values has been modified so that we can able to access this. Now, so in this case here, how can we invoke this? So now after this is fine. So this is accessing within the component, okay, fine. I can able to modify this value. These are going to be reflecting immediately here. Suppose if you want to access this component properties from another component here, then what will happen in this case? Now let's see. I'm going to be creating one more component here, the parent component. Create a lighting web component. I'm indicating parent component. Now parent component. So now in this parent component, I would like to call the child component over here. In the parent component, I would like to call this child component. Then how can we call this a child component? That means one component we can call from another component here. How to call? Now let me show you. In this case, we have to follow the kebab case. Kebab case means what here? We have to specify everything will be in the okay small letters. Camel case in the sense what? Because starting will be small and then later we can have that capital letters. Pascal case means what? Starting will be capital. Kebab case means what? All will be in small cases only here. All the values will be, that means each and every okay component name okay that should be visible in the form of small letters only here. Because Lightning is supporting that kebab case format. Now here we can access. Generally we can access the component like this C colon, but here we have to use C hyphen. Which component you would like to access? Child component, so that we can specify child. Now specify hyphen. Each and every word should be separated by a hyphen here. This is called as kebab format. Now the kebab style here. So now child component. Everything will be in the small letters only here. Now I would like to call this a child component here. So now this is the component name. C hyphen, instead of colon, we have to specify hyphen and then specify this component name. So now my component name is child component. Child hyphen component. Basically my component name is child component, but here every word we have to segregate it by using a hyphen, and there we have to specify everything will be in the form of small letters. No capital letters here. This is called as kebab, okay, kebab format. So now here in this case, So whatever the properties are available here, for these properties assign the values. Now this is the customer name here. I would like to assign the value. Now what is the property name here? Customer name. So in this case, we have to specify customer hyphen name. Everything will be in the small letters here. That is the style we have to follow. Now I would like to assign the value. Now I'm indicating, okay, parent component name. Okay, I'm changing that here. I'm assigning some new value, parent component. Next one, second property is what? Okay, product name. I'm indicating product hyphen name. I'm indicating that parent product name. Next one, employee hyphen name. I'm indicating parent employee name. That's it. So now this is the component here. I'm calling this a child component from parent here. This is the parent component. So in the parent component, I'm invoking the child component. Upon invoking child, okay, then I'm passing the value. Okay, I'm passing the value here. Now here I'm indicating parent customer name. Let's save this. Now, so now my component has been created successfully. It has been saved successfully into my R. Now let me invoke this. Instead of this a child component, I'm invoking parent component. Let's see. So now whenever we are working this. So now observe this one here. What happened in this case? Now this value will be same looking like as Ram Kumar because this is a track property. What do you mean by track property? Track decorator is going to be making the property private. That means from outside. That means from the parent component. From other components we can't access. That's what it is showing same. Okay, the old values. Now here I'm indicating API property here. Then what it means, it is indicating parent product name. That means parent value. That means this is a public property. This can be accessible from outside here. Whenever I'm defining a common property also, so this is indicating that, okay, it is indicating that Sampath Kumar. That means what? This is also not accessible. So that what happened here? So now the track decorated properties can be accessible within the component. API properties can be accessible from outside also. From the parent component also, we can pass the values to these properties. That facility is available. Depends upon your application requirement. Now, when I click on this button control, then we can able to change this values over here. Then we can invoke that. So that means what? Whatever the API decorated properties are available for these properties, we can assign the value from parent component also. From parent to child, we can pass the values also by defining that property as @API. This is the way to indicate that up to what level these properties can be accessible. If it is a track, that will be accessible within the component only here, not from outside. These are the two decorators over here. Now, let me place this code. Let me place this use case. Create two lightning web components. To pass the values for the properties from parent component to child components. Now I'm indicating child component. Let me place this code. I'm giving this node point. While referencing the child component properties inside the parent component, then we have to follow the capabilities format. That is, all the characters should be in small letters, lowercase, lowercase. Each word should be separated with hyphen. Okay, this is the format we used to follow. So this is the way to represent whether these properties can be accessible from outside or not. Okay, track decorated properties cannot be accessible from outside. API decorated properties can be accessible from outside over here because these are public, track is private here. So now, as of now, we have discussed how to access that one component properties from another component, how to assign. So now tomorrow we'll see. Okay, tomorrow we'll see. So how to invoke child component functions from parent component. From parent component, how to invoke the child component functions. We'll see practically in tomorrow's session. Along with that, we'll see that okay, wire property, wire decorator as well here. Basically, wire decorator we are using to store the SO cable query results. That means if you want to invoke any server calls, okay, to get the data from that okay database, then we are using the help of this okay wire decorator, so that we can hold some data inside that, and then we can able to perform some operations. So whenever we are fetching some data from the database objects, or if you want to invoke any server calls, we are using the help of this wire decorator. Then how to use that tomorrow we'll see practically. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your time.